10 reasons why I'm not leaving California. I'm Chris. This is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, and entertaining. This video, it's a live stream. If you're on the live stream, I look forward to hanging out with you all for about the next hour. If you're watching the archive, we'll make sure you click the bell and turn on notifications so you never miss one of these videos. Well, if you haven't heard, apparently there's a mass exodus going on where everybody's leaving California. Famous YouTubers like Joe Rogan, Graham Stephan, and even non-famous YouTubers like Elon Musk and Kanye West. But it seems like the cool thing to do for YouTubers is to leave California and then make a video about why they left. In fact, I think there's even people who don't live in California that are thinking of leaving just so that they can make videos about it. Well, let me tell you, I am not leaving California, and in this video, I'm going to share with you some of my reasons about why I'm staying in California and why I like California. But if you haven't heard why these other people are leaving, I want to spend the first 2 minutes or so of this live stream sharing with you some other people's reasons that then perhaps I'll respond to as we go on, as we talk about why I like it here. So, one of the first famous YouTubers that's announced he's leaving California is Ben Shapiro. He's the host of The Ben Shapiro Show, and he used some strong words, basically to say that California's a hellhole. But you know what? Don't just listen to my recap of it. Let's play about 30 seconds of what Ben said about why he's leaving California.
We are leaving because this place has become so horribly governed that if you have the means to get out, and if you have a company relying on you, and if you have employees who are relying on you, you are going to leave.
And so that was what Ben said. He just really doesn't like California anymore. Graham Stephan, another famous financial YouTuber, he's leaving California. Let's see why Graham's leaving.
It is official, I am moving out of California. This is not a decision that was taken lightly. In fact, I've rejected the idea for years. But once everything was shut down and both of us went entirely remote, there was the realization that we could work from pretty much anywhere. And we don't have to be anchored to one specific city to lead a fulfilling and happy life. Not to mention, on paper, I'm not oblivious to how much money I would be saving if I moved to a no-income tax state like many have done before me.
So now when Graham Stephan talks about how much money he could be saving when he goes to a no-income tax state, later on in his I'm leaving California video, he said this year he'll be saving $200,000 in California state income tax, and next year almost $400,000 in California state income tax. So that's a lot of savings, and he is on his way to Las Vegas. The third kind of big celebrity that's leaving California that made a video about it is Joe Rogan, and let's hear what Joe Rogan has to say. I will apologize, family-friendly channel. There's some colorful language that Joe uses, but I want you to hear the whole thing here.
When you look at the traffic, when you look at the economic.
And what's the story? You moving?
I'm out of here. Yeah.
When do you leave?
Soon. Yeah.
Texas or?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Texas. I just want to go somewhere in the center of the country, somewhere it's easier to travel to both places, and somewhere where you have a little bit more freedom. Also, I think that where we live right here in Los Angeles is overcrowded. And I think most of the time that's not a problem. But I think it's exposing the fact that it's a real issue when you look at the number of people that are catching COVID because of this overpopulation issue. When you look at the traffic, when you look at the economic despair, when you look at the homelessness problem that's accelerated.
And so Wu-Tai says California has a 13% income tax, give or take, but it's totally worth it. And so speaking of that taxes, Joe didn't come out and say it there, but a lot of people had speculated one of the primary reasons why he's moving to Austin, Texas, is Joe Rogan this year just signed a licensing deal with Spotify, reportedly worth more than $100 million. And so perhaps he doesn't want to give up 13% of $100 million. Now, something interesting about both Joe Rogan and Graham Stephan is they've said, although they're leaving to Las Vegas and Texas respectively, Graham Stephan is not selling his house in Los Angeles. He's keeping his house in Los Angeles, and Joe Rogan is not selling his studio. He's keeping his studio and said he will definitely be back. So the other famous person we've heard, Elon Musk, he's leaving the Bay Area, but the thing in common among Ben Graham and Joe Rogan. It's not, I think, that they're just leaving California. It's in fact that they're leaving Los Angeles. I feel like most of the high-profile people that are just really had it up to here with California have had it up to here with LA, which, by the way, if you don't know, that's not where OC Girl and I live. I'm born and raised in San Diego, California. We currently call Orange County home, which is the home of Disneyland. We live about 10 miles south of Disneyland. And so perhaps a lot of these problems that people talk about LA and then attribute to all of California actually aren't the problems of all of California. But now let's not talk about why all these people are leaving, because now we know why they're leaving. Let's talk about some of the things that I like about California. And the first thing that I like about California, and that definitely keeps me here, are the beaches. The beaches in California are the best in the continental United States. And some people might say, but Chris, what about the beaches of Florida? The beaches in California are better than the beaches of Florida. And, you know, growing up in California, I never understood really the appeal of Florida beaches until I spent some time living in the northeast part of the United States. And then I was there in the snow. And then I understood the appeal of Florida because it was just a 3-hour flight from where I was, which was closer than the West Coast. But California has so many neat beach towns and beach cities. And it's not just about the beaches, but it's about the whole beach vibe and the surf culture. This picture that we see right here, this was from a video I was just shooting in Newport Beach in this place called Corona del Mar. And actually those blue tents right there is because there was a film production crew when I was shooting that. But the beaches here are absolutely beautiful. And now when I say they're the best in the continental United States, I mean, I do have to admit that the beaches in Hawaii are better because the water's warm enough to go in all year. California, the water does get a little cold and nippy in the winter, but they're just amazing places to explore. Sabrina says, I love beaches. I love beaches as well. John wants to throw down and say, no way, Florida's better in my opinion. John, why do you think the Florida beaches are better? And I think the Florida beaches, to me, they're just kind of flat, and the beach towns and beach cities are pretty boring. There's also sharks in Florida that, like, eat people. And we really, every once in a while, there's a shark in California, but so not really. All in My World says Hawaii has some awesome beaches, and Sylvester says the ocean's cold in California. You need a wetsuit to go in the water. The good news, I have 3 wetsuits, so not a big deal. If you live here and you like the water all year round, you just get a wetsuit and you deal with it. You know, but I have a funny story about that. So I was surfing one day in San Diego, and in Mission Beach in particular, which if you're familiar with San Diego, this is the beach that has a big wooden roller coaster by the beach. And it was the winter. It was like December, and the water was about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've got my, longboard that I'm carrying to the beach. And there was a guy who was just coming out of the water with just shorts. He didn't have a wetsuit. He didn't have anything. And I said to the guy, I'm like, hey, aren't you cold? It's pretty cold in that water. And he says to me, he's like, nah, man, I'm from the state of Maine. And if you're not familiar with U.S. geography, Maine is like the most northeast state. And he's like, the water in Maine is cold. Let me tell you, if you're surfing in Maine and you duck dive under a wave and you don't have a hood, you could pass out. It's so cold. So it never gets that cold in California. All right, the second reason why I'm not leaving California, in addition to the beaches, and I saw a number of people say this, is the weather. The weather in California is some of the best anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and say that. We get winter, but winter is in the mountains. That's where we keep the snow. We keep the snow in the mountains where it belongs, so the snow doesn't end up in our driveways, on our streets. If you don't want to, you never have to shovel snow here in California. And when I say if you don't want to, obviously if you decide to live in Lake Tahoe or Big Bear where it snows, then you'll have to shovel some snow. But most of the California population does not live in places where shoveling snow is a thing or scraping ice is a thing. The other things about the great weather is California's not humid. That's the thing I can't take about the Florida beaches and the Florida weather. It's just so humid that the humidity saps the life out of me. And so the dryness in California, even though it's hot, and it's not as hot as Nevada or Arizona, right? Very pleasant. And we have what they call these kind of like microclimates where it'll be, even though it might be hot 10 miles inland, like 90 degrees, it can be 70 degrees by the coast. By the way, this picture that we're looking at right here is a picture of Dana Point, California, which is one of the videos that I'm doing my coastal series on. So if you like California, I hope you're tuning into my California coastal series. OC Girl points out the other thing about Florida, in addition to the humidity and the bugs, there are alligators in Florida. There are alligators. They're really big alligators. And when people say like dinosaurs are extinct, I'm not so sure, because I feel like alligators look like a pretty good descendant of dinosaurs. So I think dinosaurs are alive and well in Florida. Urshad agrees that keeping snow in the mountains is the best, and Kathy says that Australia has the best beaches. Kathy, I'm not going to argue that Australia has some great beaches, except in this case I was comparing California to the continental U.S. Let's see. Traveling the World says Florida has bugs, but California has wildfires. The great news, if you live by the beach, wildfires are not a big deal by the beach. And I have a point about wildfires, and people complain about the California wildfires, which nature burns. And if you live in a pretty populated area of California, wildfires aren't a big deal because the wild is far away from the city. The issue has really been that in California, we've been building and building more houses further out where you just probably shouldn't have houses, and there you get the wildfires. Let's see. And actually, so where we live in Orange County, there were recently some wildfires about 2 weeks ago. I mean, it was pretty bad. The air quality was pretty bad. But it was the kind of place where when they're talking about the communities that were affected by the wildfires, those houses weren't there 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it'd be like, oh, there's some fire out in the place where nobody lives. But now we've built houses up right by that place, and so people had to get evacuated. And Sol points that out. Indeed, there was. And Anne points out about insects that Florida has monster-sized insect. It does. And this is one of the things I'll say, growing up in Southern California, I never really appreciated the bugs the rest of the country has, because you'll take road trips around California and your car stays relatively clean, but you take road trips around the rest of the country, and including Florida, and the front of your car and the windshield is just covered with dead bugs, just to show all of the bugs. Of course, the funny thing about talking about Orange County, there's actually Orange County, California, and there's Orange County, Florida. And King Cobra says that Orange County is the Florida of California. I assume you're talking about the Orange County of California is the Orange County of Florida. Sabrina asks, what am I drinking today? Today I am drinking some tea from this tea shop called Oro Bay. This is a Gyokuro green milk tea is what this is. And it's really pretty good. What's special about this place is they make the tea out of what they call a espresso tea machine, which presses the tea and infuses it, and so it has a pretty strong, delicious tea flavor. All right, thank you for asking, Sabrina. And so the other thing about the weather that's great is there's kind of people really call California two parts, like Southern California and Northern California. In the case of the weather, I'll probably call it Southern California, Northern California, and then Inland California. Inland California, you get 20 miles from the coast. It can get pretty hot. Death Valley's here. Some of the hottest parts actually in the U.S. are here in California. They're pretty inland now where people live. And so if you don't like it warm, then the San Francisco Bay Area gets the summers stay really cool with the fog. That's what makes the sourdough bread so good in San Francisco. And actually today, as I was researching for a video I was doing on Carlsbad, California, I read that Carlsbad, California has about 250 days of sunshine a year, which is pretty good, I think. All right. The third thing why I'm not leaving California is California has so many outdoor things to do. Obviously, we've talked about the beaches; those are outdoors. But hiking, there are so many hiking options. There are so many park options, and people who live in California generally really appreciate, like, and enjoy outdoor activities, and so the California municipalities have prioritized a lot of those things. So there's a lot of parkland, there's a lot of open space. I mean, the number of places that we can go hiking, I'm putting like a 10 best hiking trails video together on Orange County, California, and it's going to take me a long time because to hike the 10 different trails, it's at least 10 different weekends, which will probably take longer than that, but they're all like really good with really good views, all within like an hour driving distance of our house. Popular for mountain biking. I mean, I think a lot of people in California, if you ask them what they're doing on the weekend, they're doing something outside. And frankly, because the weather's so good, you really never bother to pay attention to the weather report here. Well, you might to see how hot or cold it is, but you're not really paying attention to the weather report to see if your activities are going to be canceled, because for the most part, there's no big rain, there's no big thunderstorms, there's no snowstorms, there's no stuff that we're like, oh, are we sure we can have that thing? It's funny, OC Girl and I, when we got married a little over 10 years ago. It was in February. You go like, who gets married in February? Well, in California, you get married in February because the weather's always nice. And we were worried there was a slight chance of rain, but it didn't materialize on our wedding day, which was good. But again, those wedding days are slight. It's something like 10 or less days of real rain a year in Southern California, at least. Kathy says she loves the yellow umbrella. Yeah, yellow umbrella. I bought this yellow umbrella a number of years ago, and this was the first time I got to use it, and I was really happy about it. Because whenever we travel, I take this Brookstone travel umbrella that packs really small and it's light, but we were going out, this was on a trail in San Clemente, California, and this new hiking backpack that we have for our little Explorer has this easy big pocket in it, and so we just tossed our umbrellas in there, and it's a little bigger, it's heavier, so it's okay. Let's see. Urshad says California has good Mexican food and not so good Cuban food. Cali has good Mexican food and Florida has not so good Cuban food. All right, that's an interesting perspective, and we're going to talk about food in just a moment. Let's see. I guess related to hot, yeah, Wu Tai says Palm Springs is out. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Palm Springs is this generally considered a retirement community about 100 miles, 80 miles east of downtown Los Angeles. Palm Springs is really hot. It's really dry, but it's popular as a retirement community because for people who have arthritis and things like that, it's good for the bones, the joints. And, you'd think there were hot springs in Palm Springs, but there are no hot springs in Palm Springs. The hot springs are in the neighboring cities. Jack Andrews points out that there's 299 sunny days per year in Phoenix. I bet, Jack, but boy, Phoenix gets really hot. I mean, I like the outdoor activities in Phoenix too, but in August you're not doing any outdoor activities in Phoenix. And I guess related to yellow, Tree wants to know, why don't I just become an Oakland A's fan? They have yellow in their color. Maybe I should. I'm not really big fans of any sports teams, and this is something about growing up in California and outdoor things to do. There are so many outdoor things to do that a lot of people who grow up here aren't super big into sports because it's like, well, should I sit at home and watch football or basketball or baseball, or should I go outside and do something outside? That's what people often tend to do. The fourth reason why I'm staying in California is the food. I said we would talk about this, and the food in California is just amazing, from the quality to the variety to the inexpensive and cheapness of it. Cheap's maybe not a good word for food because you think cheap and then you think the quality's cheap, but the prices in California for really good food are pretty low and pretty reasonable. I'm always like, when I go to the eastern seaboard of the U.S. to Washington, D.C., Boston, New York City, and any of that stuff, I'm really always kind of depressed about the food. And I just say that because to get good food, it's often really expensive. In New York City, yeah, you can get like pizza and things like that, but to get the good food, you need to be there on like an expense account or something. But related to types of food, the Mexican food here, I think, is the best in the U.S. People might say, but Chris, Tex-Mex is really good. What about, New Mexican cuisine in New Mexico? I agree those are both pretty good, but you can also get New Mexican style cuisine and Tex-Mex here as well. It's not quite as good, the renditions in California, as they are in New Mexico or Texas, but I think that the California renditions of Mexican are the best and the most authentic and the most variety, in the sense that, now we're getting a lot of Mexican food, not just the Tijuana or Baja California style, but the Mexican foods from other states of Mexico, like Oaxaca or Jalisco. And Mike Fitz says, and California is the home to In-N-Out Burger. It is the home to In-N-Out Burger. And so you can't really in California go more than, 10 miles in any populated area away from an In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger just has like covered the map of California, and so you're always pretty close to pretty good burgers. And the amazing Mexican food. Now, the other part that's really good about California and food, and the picture I have up here, is the quality and variety of Asian food. Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and Thai. This here is a picture of some Thai chicken rice from a restaurant that specializes in nothing but that. It's called The Chicken Rice, and this is what they specialize in. Two types of chicken there, the kind of poached chicken and the fried chicken with the various sauces. And, the Asian food in California, it's authentic. It's the kind of food that people would eat in those countries, not the Chinese food that you serve with like French fries and ketchup. And now the only thing that I would say that I dislike about the food in California is, it's not about the food, but it's that some chains sometimes don't open first in California and sometimes they open first in New York City. I saw a question about ramen, and in California there are so many great ramen places, but this chain from Japan called Ippudo, they opened their first branch in the United States in New York City, because New York City has the clout. It's, the biggest city in the U.S., and so that's where they opened first. It took 10 years for them to come to the L.A. area. And I guess I can't complain because, for people who are in Kansas, like Ippudo still hasn't come there. They'll be waiting a long time. But one of the places we really like for ramen, it's in Mitsuwa Japanese supermarkets. It's called Santoka. They have really good ramen. There's another place that's in Santa Monica that we've eaten at a lot that for some reason my brain isn't working on, and maybe OC Girl will help me out and put that in the chat. I'm sure she knows exactly what we're talking about because we've gotten a lot of takeout from that ramen place lately. There was a question about if I'll ever move to Hawaii, and I like the food in Hawaii. And OC Girl says, I don't think Chris will move to Hawaii because I won't move with him. So that is probably true. And I would say, OC Girl and I have talked about it a little bit. We're like, we could go live in Hawaii for a year or two, but not to move, just because for us it's too small, and so we'd end up with that kind of island fever feeling. I love the laid backness and the vibe and everything like that in Hawaii, and it's one of my favorite places. And OC Girl did indeed help me out on that ramen place that we really like. It's called Sujita. So if you're going to Los Angeles, particularly near Santa Monica, and you want to check out some of the best ramen, check out Sujita, spelled like that, Tsujita. It's in a part of Santa Monica known as Little Osaka. We have a lot of these like little ethnic neighborhoods where just lots of good food from a particular kind of country or ethnicity comes together. Denny and Nikki says they really need to bring In-N-Out Burger to Hawaii. That would be awesome for everybody in Hawaii. I agree. Sistress says, I had In-N-Out Burger when I went to Ontario for a podcast convention. It wasn't bad and I had fun, though the fast food tax I paid wasn't. I'm sorry to hear that, Sistress. Maybe my body has learned to metabolize In-N-Out Burger very well. Gaming Kingdom says, do you know Kopan Ramen? I do not know Kopan Ramen, should I? But Gaming Kingdom says Los Angeles has a lot of really good Korean barbecue. And I agree, it does. The Korean barbecue is amazing in Los Angeles. And actually, OC Girl and I were in Korea last year, and we had a lot of Korean barbecue there. And I felt that the Korean barbecue in Los Angeles was better than the Korean barbecue in Korea. Caveat for the beef items. I felt the Korean barbecue with the American quality of beef was better than the Korean barbecue with the Korean beef. The pork items were definitely better in Korea than they were here. I don't think we have the same quality of pork as they often do in Korea because people just don't pay a lot of money for pork, and they don't think that it's worth it. And Juve Travels points out that little Osaka in Santa Monica is at Sawtell and Olympic. You know it well, Juve Travels, indeed. Gary Knapp wants to know where would I live besides California? I think so. If I had to pick like one other place to live in the world, it would be Tokyo. I think it would also be really neat to live in Singapore. Those are two other places I would live, even though they're both places that are potentially hot and humid. Kay Clark says, I loved your trip to Korea videos. Thank you, Kay Clark. I appreciate it. Wu Tai says, having In-N-Out Burger is a huge selling point. I am over Steak and Shake. I've never eaten at Steak and Shake. I've seen it in my travels, but I've not eaten there. Let's see. Travel Adventures with Eric B. says, unpopular opinion, In-N-Out Burger is overrated, and Five Guys, Jack in the Box, and Whataburger are all better. Eric B., you are entitled to your opinion. I'm just going to have to say you're wrong. Those are fighting words, and you are wrong, but I still love you for what it's worth. Okay, let's go on to the next reason why I'm staying in California. This is number 5. And I love the attitude of the people who live in California. And what do I mean by the attitude of people who live in California? Well, people who move to California or people who live in California that are like willing to pay what we call the sunshine tax. You know, we talked about this earlier, that California has at the top scale, a 13% state income tax rate, and we refer to it as the sunshine tax to say, I guess I'm paying the sunshine tax because I'm paying the weather, and I'm paying for the lifeguards at the beach, and I'm paying for people to maintain the beach, and I'm paying for the bathrooms at the beach that are all things that I use. And so people who are willing to pay that and put up with it do it because they want to live in a place that they can enjoy life. And so most people in California, as like a general attitude, feel like life is to be lived, to be enjoyed. And an example of that is, you know, if the surf's up today, then maybe we should go to the beach today, and instead of what else we were planning to do, right? Like drop everything because the surf's up and let's go to the beach. And that was something just that I noticed spending time also on the eastern part of the U.S. that everybody there is like in the rat race, trying to make the money, you know, working 80 hours a week, you know, cutting time from their kids, cutting time from their sleep, cutting time from spending time with their family because they're trying to, you know, keep up with the Joneses or something like that. And I think life is just too short. And so I find people in California in general to be some of the friendliest people and laid back in the U.S. I find the people in Hawaii to be the friendliest people in the U.S., just so we're clear. And I know that sometimes people say related to Hawaii that people in Hawaii don't like tourists. You know, there's a subgroup, but I would say in general, the people that you meet in Hawaii are just super warm and super friendly. Tokyo Spin says, I'd be welcome anytime in Tokyo. Thank you, Tokyo Spin. I appreciate it. Urshed also says that California is the only place that you can surf and ski in the same day, for sure. And you know what? I've done that. I didn't surf and snowboard in the same day, but I went to the beach and snowboard in the same day just so that I said I could do that. And Kay Clark says it's nice to be able to go to the beach almost any time of the year in California. For sure, Kay Clark. I'll say, living in Southern California, the joke is I wear shorts all year round. And it's not a joke because I wear shorts all year round. Even if it's like 50 degrees or 40 degrees, I will still wear shorts because it's not cold enough to have to put on pants. I can put on a fleece and I can put on a beanie and I can still wear my shorts and frankly still walk around the beach. Henry wants to know if I'm also a big fan of San Francisco. I appreciate San Francisco. San Francisco has its collection of issues as well, as does Los Angeles. The homelessness, the drug use, those sorts of things. Those are issues, and San Francisco has to work through those, as most cities, it seems like in the U.S., where homelessness is getting worse and the deterioration of the urban cores. But San Francisco has this just like amazing charm and amazing vibe to it. And so in that sense, I am a fan of San Francisco. And Samantha says, we have amazing museums and zoos and aquariums in California. We do, and in addition to amazing museums and zoos in California, the sixth reason why I'm staying in California is we also have amazing theme parks. That's right. I mentioned that we live in Orange County. It's the home of Disneyland, the home of the happiest place on earth. And I've been to Disney World. I like Disney World, but I like Disneyland better just because it's the place that it started. We also have Universal Studios, the home to Universal Studios. This is the only Universal Studios, the one in Los Angeles, that has the actual studio tour. All the other Universal Studios theme parks are just built as theme parks, but in Los Angeles, it's an active working movie studio. Actually, speaking of theme parks, most people don't know this, but most of the major film studios in Los Angeles have tours that you can take of them, like backstage tours. It's essentially kind of like a theme park. You can take tour of Sony Pictures, Warner Brothers, Paramount. It's pretty neat. O'Sigurl and I did that recently. We got to sit on the same bench that like Forrest Gump sat on in the movie Forrest Gump. If you like roller coasters, I think the Six Flags Magic Mountain in California is one of the best parks for roller coasters in the U.S. And because the weather's so good, our theme parks can be open all year round. That's one of the things that's always kind of like a bummer for me in a lot of places I go to. Is I'm like, I want to go to the theme park. Oh, it's October. It's closed. It won't open again until April or something. B-Bear says, I should move to Vail. I love Vail. Vail's really neat. Vail is my favorite snow town for sure. Kathy says she can't wait to get back to Disneyland one day. Yeah, so, by the way, speaking of Disneyland, some neat news coming out of Disneyland is that Disney California Adventure is kind of reopening. I mean, because sadly, it doesn't look like Disneyland's going to like open as a theme park anytime soon. They're reopening the downtown Disney district. I mean, the downtown Disney district is a shopping district, but they're opening that up into Disney's California Adventure to open the shops and restaurants there. They'll just be able to go into with free admission. So when that does open, and it just opens in a few days, I hope to bring you some video of what the downtown Disney shopping experience at Disney California Adventure looks like. Colleen asks if I've ever stayed at a Disney hotel. When I was a wee little one, my parents, we went to Disneyland from San Diego because it's kind of a long drive. 2 hours from San Diego to Disneyland, and we stayed in a Disneyland hotel. Then, it was a long time ago, as you could imagine. O'Sigurl and I have not stayed in the Disney hotels there recently, because we live so close to it. I have stayed in the Disney hotel in Florida. I think I stayed at, maybe it's called like Coronado Springs or something like that. I mean, I think if you want, like, the most magical Disney experience, like, stay at the Disney Hotel, because it's right there, it's right on property. I think it's worth it. I mean, assuming that the rates aren't, like, $600, you know? John W. says you can visit the theme parks from out of state. It's not a reason to live in the state. It is, John, because we, like, as Disneyland goers, are annual pass holders to Disneyland, and so you can't visit Disneyland twice a month or even once a month if you don't live in the state. You can't visit Disneyland for 3 hours if you live out of state. And living next to Disneyland and having an annual pass makes it a completely different experience to visit Disneyland, because I'm sure many of you have been to Disneyland or a Disney theme park or a theme park, and you're like, I spent a bunch of money to go in. I need to maximize my value. By the 10th hour you're in there, you're exhausted, you're tired. As annual pass holders, that we were like annual pass holders for 10 years. We let it lapse this year, but we'll get it again when our little explorer's a little older and she can enjoy Disneyland again. To just go for 3 hours, you're like, I'm going to go on Space Mountain, and I'm going to watch Frozen, and then I'm good. And then I'm going to go home, and I'll come back next weekend to go on that next ride that I want to go on. Hoshi also says we have the San Diego Zoo, the biggest one, and the Safari too. Yeah, I agree. I think the San Diego Zoo is the best zoo in the U.S. The close second, I would say, is the Smithsonian Zoo in Washington, D.C., though I will say my favorite zoo in the world is in Singapore. The Singapore Zoo is absolutely out of this world. Okay. Gary says, if you could live anywhere in California, where would it be? Right where we are. We love living in Orange County. Now, if we had to pick and we had a bunch of money, we would probably live maybe like closer to the beach, like in Newport Beach, as opposed to a little bit like inland where we do. And OC Girl and I often joke that our dream is to live in Newport Beach on Balboa Island. If you're not familiar with Balboa Island, it's like one of the most expensive places you could live around here, and many of the houses have boat docks. And like a house in Balboa Island with a boat dock and a view of the harbor is probably about $20 million. And just so that you all don't have any delusions about how much money we have nowhere near that money. And so our joke is that, well, we should save up for one of those houses, but we really should buy the boat first, and then we can shop for a house to park our boat. By the way, when we buy that boat and that house on Balboa Island, you all will be the first to know, because I'll definitely do a home tour of that. By the way, if there's any international folks on that are like, Chris, when are you moving to Balboa Island? I just want to let you know, sarcasm is one of the many services that I offer, in addition to fun, informative, and entertaining travel guides. The seventh reason that I'm staying in California are the flights. California has the most flights from the U.S. to Asia and Hawaii. And you all who watch me a lot know that I love to complain about LAX Airport, which Kevin is talking about. I do love to complain about LAX Airport, because as an airport, it's really quite run down and needs some significant help. But you can fly almost anywhere from LAX Airport. It's amazing. And San Francisco Airport has like even more flights to everywhere. And then John Wayne in Orange County, which is the airport that we're closest to, right? It's just a 1 hour flight to San Francisco, and then anywhere in Asia for there. And the flights for us, and people often go like, well, Chris, why do you guys go to Asia so much, and why don't you go to Europe as much? Well, from Los Angeles, we can get flights to Tokyo, to Korea, to Taipei, to Hong Kong, to Singapore, often for like $600 a person round trip, which is half the price, a third of the price of what it costs us to fly from LA to Europe. So that would be why we don't go to places like Scotland more, because there just aren't that many flights to Scotland, and it costs $2,000 a person to go to Scotland, and it costs $600 to go to Tokyo. But you can get a lot of places from here. Food Expert says, I like SFO better. As an airport, I like SFO better. also, I do not like the weather in SFO. I don't like the fog in SFO, and so I don't like all the flight delays that come out of SFO due to the weather. And so that's actually why, if I picked one, I pick LAX, even though I deal with all the traffic and the warts. Sabrina asks, how old am I? I am old. Maybe not that old. I'm young. I don't know. What do you consider old? I am nearly 40 years old, but I am not yet 40 years old. Randy says, as far as airports go, Long Beach is much easier than LAX, except Long Beach doesn't have flights to that many places. But actually, LA has there's a lot of airports near Los Angeles. There's LAX, there's this, or John Wayne, Orange County, there's Burbank, there's Ontario. I actually like Ontario as an airport. And T and Ham says, the view on a flight and into LAX is quite nice. It is. Like landing into LAX, I love to sit near a window seat and just look at all the neighborhoods and freeways and things like that. There was one time I was flying back to San Diego, and San Diego had like a massive power outage where all the power in San Diego went out, completely dark. And that was actually like a really neat landing experience, because just imagine looking out of an airplane, and if all the power in the city's out, the only things you see are the freeways, because you see the headlights on the freeways, right? That was the only thing I could see. And then the airport, because the airport had emergency lights on so that our plane could land. Wu Tai says, I just turned 28 and no haters. That's right. Every year I'm 28. Kate Clark says, I thought you were younger. Young at heart. See, this is why age doesn't really matter. I think your age is all about how you act and how you feel. Waves and Blaze says, looking good for 39. Thank you, Waves and Blaze. And Sapphire says, I look so young. And Sister says, I'm older than you. And Kathy says as well. Denny says the national and state parks has to be a reason to stay in California. For sure, Denny, I would have lumped that in probably number 3 about outdoor things to do, but there are so many great national state parks. I've done a lot of videos in my California Coastal series recently about state parks, state beaches, and that's one, again, when I say I don't mind paying the California taxes. I don't love them, but they go to upkeep those things. And so, when I go to Crystal Cove State Park, which is a video I just published, there are so many people working to maintain Crystal Cove State Park in Newport Beach. And the, $10 that people pay for parking, or $15, does not go to pay for all those people. It simply doesn't. Sydney says the Channel Islands are amazing. I've never been to the Channel Islands. I've been in Ventura to look at where you can see the Channel Islands, but I've never actually gone out to them. There's a question from Henry about what are my thoughts about Catalina Island. I think it's a great place and it's so underrated. I wish Catalina Island had better hotels. I like Catalina as a place. It has kind of a neat feel and vibe, though I feel like all the hotels are kind of lame. And so until there's some really good hotels on Catalina Island, because I'm a huge fan of good hotels, then I don't love it maybe as much as I should. Okay. Waves and Blaze says Laguna Beach is great too. I love Laguna Beach. I put out the Laguna Beach, the ultimate guide to Laguna Beach, a few weeks ago, and it's a neat artist enclave. When I talk about beach towns and their vibes, Laguna Beach is just one of those reasons why California beaches are better than Florida beaches, is there's nothing like that in Florida. And if you want to know what like that is, then watch my Laguna Beach video. Just search for Laguna Beach Yellow Productions when you're done for this. All right, the 8th thing why I'm not leaving California is because of the culture here. Someone mentioned it in the chat earlier and said, we've got pretty good museums and aquariums and things like that. This picture right here that we're looking at is the Getty Museum, the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles. It is an entirely free museum to go to that is a world-class art museum. It's amazing. And I'm not even a huge fan of art, but I love going to the Getty. OC Girl really loves going to the Getty. The other thing that's great about being in Los Angeles is that, or near Los Angeles or near San Francisco, is that every touring concert is going to come through the Los Angeles area or the San Francisco area. And although like traveling expeditions, the King Tut art exhibit typically go to New York City first, California is typically the second place on the list for any touring art exhibit that goes to the U.S. And again, I can complain that we don't get it first, but I can't complain because we get it second. People who are in Wyoming, that's usually never, right? And I mentioned earlier about Kanye West leaving California. The rumor with Kanye West is he purchased a $15 million ranch in Wyoming. So the rumor is that Kanye West may be moving to Wyoming. Kanye West probably travels enough in his traveling rap artist that that's not a big deal for him. Anthony wants to add one more data point on Catalina. That Catalina is just a day trip. I think the little town it is, I think Catalina is like really great for people who like camping and hiking over in the backcountry. And I think there's at least a couple days of stuff in there to do. I just, if there was nicer hotels, then it would be better. Hoshi AM agrees with me that the hotels in Catalina Island are outdated. The ninth reason why I'm not leaving California is because of the conventions. There are so many great conventions that come to California. And well, Chris, it's a pandemic, COVID, are you going to conventions right now? I believe that there will be a future where we will be able to go back to conventions again. And San Diego is home to, I think, one of the best conventions in the world, the San Diego Comic-Con International. Right, this is where, A, there's lots of comics, but B, it's like where the movie industry goes to announce big movies, big events. And there's, 150,000 people that descend on San Diego for this convention. A lot of conventions like it. Also, outside of Disneyland, there's a big convention center in Anaheim that draws a lot of big conventions. In particular, one I go to called VidCon, which is kind of like the equivalent of like a YouTube convention. And so it's great to be able to go to all these conventions and not actually like really have to go anywhere. So there's comments about we love Las Vegas and we love your videos about Las Vegas. Well, thank you, Kenny. I appreciate it. And so my 10th reason why I'm not leaving California is that there's so many easy day trips. We talked about Catalina as a day trip. Now, Vegas isn't a day trip, but clearly one of the reasons why I do so many videos about Vegas is, I go to Vegas 2 or 3 times a year because it's just a short 4-hour drive from California. Now, one of the things I've heard people say, like they say the inverse. So Graham Stephan moving to Las Vegas and keeping his house in California says that, like, hey, it's no big deal for him to move to Vegas because it's just a 4-hour drive back to LA. And, 3 times a year, it's not bad. But if you're doing that often, right, it just becomes something you just don't do because 4 hours is a long time done regularly, but it's not a long time if you're just doing a special thing. And so day trips, things we just love to do is we love to explore the California coast, drive along the Pacific Coast Highway. There's so many neat towns and neat things to see. And this weekend, we're planning to go apple picking, neat, great activity outside of LA. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, so Hoshi points out about the LA tar pits. Yes, if you want to see a tar pit, Los Angeles has the famous La Brea tar pits. They're pretty cool. So that's definitely one of those like unique things to see in LA. Justin asked if Napa Valley can be a day trip. From San Francisco, Napa Valley can be a day trip for sure. John says, I would live in Vegas and take a day trip to California. I like to visit Vegas. I don't think I could do Vegas because it's so dry all the time. And my earliest point about loving the beach, there's something in me that like needs to go to the beach. Like I need to go to the beach at least twice a month. If I don't go to the beach at least twice a month, like I start to get the shakes, and my beach meter gets low, and so the beach at the Mandalay Bay just doesn't do it for me. Emmett Brown says, Las Vegas, a 4-hour drive, you lucky dog. That's just, by the way, I should caveat that to say that's if you time it right, and I time it right because I hate sitting in traffic. If you leave LA like on a Friday afternoon, it'll take 6 to 8 hours. That's not the time to leave. If you leave Thursday at 10 a.m., then it's a 4-hour drive. No problem. Mike also says that California has tons of fresh vegetables, nuts, and some of the best fresh fruit you'll ever eat. I agree, because almost like all the vegetables or things like that are either grown in California or Florida. So there's tons of farmers markets, fresh veggies. Before I go to Q&A, there's just a few things that I want to say about the Exodus in general, to kind of conclude where we started, to say, hey, like these famous people, they've made these videos, they said they're leaving, but as someone who's lived in California for a long time, my whole life essentially, other than times when I've gone and lived other places but always come back to California, there's been an exodus going on forever. But my whole life, there's always been people leaving California. Everyone is always leaving California. The last big exodus was in 2008, when like Texas was like really trying to lure people from California. They had like billboards on the 405 freeway to be like, come to Texas. No taxes, and so that's the, people list all these issues about why they're leaving California, why they hate California, the wildfires, the homelessness, the blah, blah, air quality, these sorts of things. The thing is, for most of these high-profile people that are leaving, they just didn't want to pay the 13% tax, and they often say things like Graham Stephan said, so, if I just live in Las Vegas for 187 days this year, then I don't have to pay that California income tax. So that means he's leaving California to be in Nevada 51% of the time. 49% of the time, he can still be in California to save that money. We always talk about companies that have left, and yeah, big companies have left. Toyota was like the biggest one to leave the Los Angeles region recently. They moved to Texas. Everybody who leaves California seems to be going to like a no income tax state, right? Nevada, Oregon, Nashville, Texas. I think the biggest problem for people who leave California, when they leave California, they can't ever come back, provided they sell their house. If they sell their house, they can never come back, because the property values keep going up in California, and the jobs don't pay as well in other places because the housing isn't as expensive, and so people just get priced out. And the other thing I just kind of generally want to know is, if everybody's leaving, then why are the house prices still going up? Somebody mentioned, like, Christo, I think San Diego is the best big city in California. I like San Diego. I do. I was born and raised in San Diego, so I like San Diego. But the housing market in San Diego is like at an all-time high, because people are looking, and actually probably leaving Los Angeles because they're like, there's just too many people there. I want to live someplace there's a little less people. Lashana says, which state would I move to if I had to leave California? That's a great question, and I haven't put too much thought into that one besides Hawaii, because it might have been Hawaii for a couple years. Maybe Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. Just because the weather's not awful in Seattle. Like, it's kind of like cool, interesting times, though I don't think we'd live in Seattle, because Seattle has its similar share of problems as like downtown Los Angeles does. Let's see. Anthony says, I think it's more than taxes for some. A lot of people feel lonely and disconnected here. There's no sense of community in some areas. So, Anthony, if we're talking about Los Angeles, I agree with you. I've talked to a lot of people that have said they feel Los Angeles itself kind of feels soulless. It's hard to connect to people. It's hard to make friends. I think that's a problem of LA. I think that's a problem of big cities. And I don't think that's a problem of California. I think if you get out of Los Angeles to Orange County, you get to San Diego, you get to Central California, even if you go up to the Bay Area, I think there's more affinity groups and more people willing to get connected. Los Angeles just being a kind of the Hollywood transient town that also everybody's out to make a buck and make something for themselves. Maybe there's a little bit of shallowness to Los Angeles too. So what time is it now? Well, it's time.
Fellow explorers, it is now Q&A time. If you've got a question, I've got an answer.
Okay, it's Q&A time. If you asked a question and I didn't answer it before, hit me up now. Make sure you put a question at the end of it so I see it is a question. Let's see. Jeff says, if I were to move to California, I would live in San Diego. Justin points out, for people who are thinking of leaving California, to go to non-income tax states. Those are Washington, Nevada, Texas, Florida, Alaska, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Tennessee also doesn't have personal tax income. Miss Ellen says, I love the variety of food in California. So spoiled when it is to food. I agree. People living in California, and probably me too, get pretty spoiled by the food. Martin says, if he lived in California, he would live in a van down by the river as a motivational speaker. Thank you for that, Martin. Traveling the World says, which city in California do you like the most? Also, San Francisco is overrated and disgusting, but you made a guide video. Do you like it? So I made a guide video because San Francisco is a great place to visit. When I don't know, overrated and disgusting are the words that I would use. Those are definitely words you used. But I think that San Francisco has issues are the words that I used, and I would like to see San Francisco cleaned up to kind of return to its sheen that people have in their heads. If I had to pick one city that I like the most, it's probably Santa Monica. Martin asks if I'm leaving California. That's a great question, and when I am leaving California, I will definitely make a video about it. Briggs wants to know why. Because. Miss Ellen wants to know, what's my favorite ethnic food in California that you've tasted? Definitely the Mexican food here. Kevin Crutchfield wants to know what the airspeed velocity of a laden swallow is. 42? Let's see. The Uniplex wants to know if we've been to Euro Disney or Disneyland in France. We have never been to Disneyland in France. We have been to the Disneyland here in Florida and in Tokyo. We have not been to the other ones. Tree wants to know what's a good place to watch the Raiders game on Sunday in Vegas. Sorry, I don't know, Tree. I have not been to Vegas to watch any of the local Raiders games since they opened up. Jake wants to know if Universal Studios is open. No, it is closed. All theme parks in California that have more than an attendance of 250 people per day are closed. Sistress wants to know if I would visit a place like Slab City. I'm not sure what Slab City is. Justin wants to know, I love In-N-Out. How often do I eat there? 2 or 3 times a week is how often I eat In-N-Out Burger. Clark Hall says, when do you think it's safe to travel on airplanes again? I think it is currently safe to travel on airplanes. There was a study recently released by the Department of Defense and Boeing that said if you were on an airplane and you were seated next to somebody who had COVID-19 and you were both wearing masks, due to the good ventilation on planes, you would have to be sitting next to that person for over 50 hours to get a dose of COVID-19 to actually make you sick. Tree wants to know if I ever come to San Jose. Occasionally come to San Jose. The Winchester House is kind of neat in San Jose. Denny wants to know, why did I pick Singapore as a place to live other than California? Because I love the food in Singapore. I think the food in Singapore is absolutely amazing. Sander says, quick question. I sometimes see good deals on Hotwire. Have you ever used it? I have never used Hotwire. It's real, but I've never used it. John wants to know if you got a dream job or great business opportunity outside California, would you leave California? It would have to be an amazing dream job, right? The math I would do on that was that job would probably have to pay, five times of what I currently earn now to, take me to some place like Wyoming. Gary wants to know if I've been to New Jersey. Have I been to New Jersey? Yes, I've been to New Jersey. I don't know why that took me so long to think that. Probably because I was looking at other comments to put up. Randy says, what's the most unique cuisine you've had? horse sashimi in Japan. Hutai says, how do you make In-N-Out fries even better? You get them animal style, and if you get animal style fries, the In-N-Out burger, then you get the fries, they melt cheese on top, they put Thousand Island dressing, and they put grilled onions on top. It's amazing. And Kevin says, yes, the airspeed velocity, the correct answer is African European. Thank you very much. I could not remember that full quote, but yes, it is one of my favorite lines from Monty Python. Could you please bring me a shrubbery? Thank you. Rosa wants to know, what are some good social distance foodie places? Where? There's a lot of good social distance foodie places in Los Angeles. There's this kind of set of like open air food halls called Steelcraft, 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 that are pretty good because they're outside. Steve wants to know if I'll be visiting Buena Vista Street this week. I will not be visiting an open day because I think it's going to be too crazy, but I'll visit it at least within the next 2 weeks. Tree wants to know if I like Studio Ghibli movies. Absolutely. In particular... Oh, what's the name of the movie? The one with no face that's set in the Japanese bathhouse. Spirited Away. I love Spirited Away. Jared wants to know if I liked Melbourne, Australia. I loved Melbourne, Australia. I had a totally different perspective on Australia when I went, and then I went to Melbourne, and I was like, this is a really neat cosmopolitan urban place with also lots of great food. Tokyo Spin says, when you next come to Japan, which area would you like to go to? Tottori is my next stop. I don't know. We haven't planned out our next trip yet. We really enjoyed Kyushu when we went like a couple trips ago, and we didn't make it all the way to the bottom of Kyushu, so that's probably on our list.
Yes, it's the time you've been waiting for. It's time for the giveaway.
All right, it's giveaway time, and you will win a Yellow Productions Crew shirt if you answer my question correctly. And to know the answer to this question, well, you'll have to have followed my YouTube story that I posted today, and that is, I was shooting some video today. Where was I shooting video at? If you can answer the question of where I was shooting video today for an upcoming travel guide in my California Beach series, then you will win a Yellow Productions Crew shirt shipped to you anywhere in the world. Now, if you don't get to win one, well, you can buy one. There might be on your screen on YouTube down there someplace, or you can find a link to my Etsy shop. Links in the description below. In addition to the shirts, there's also other things like cups and mugs and other types of shirts too, if you want the like embroidered shirts. I think the Yellow Productions Crew shirt are the best. Hoshi AM!
And now we have a winner chicken dinner.
You are the winner, Hoshi AM. It is Carlsbad, California. That's an upcoming travel guide that I'm filming. And Hoshi AM actually commented on that story and said, are the flower fields open? The flower fields in Carlsbad are not open. But Carlsbad is famous because it's home to Legoland in California. So Hoshi, congratulations. Let me know where you want me to send your shirt and your address. You can send me an email to chris@yellow.net with 2 W's, or you can send me a message on Facebook. You'll find a link to that in the description below. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Definitely click that thumbs up. Let other people know that this is the place to be. Let YouTube know that this is the other place to be for other people to come here. I want to thank you for watching. If you wonder when the next live stream is going to be, well, it'll be next week on Tuesday, 4:45 p.m. Los Angeles time. Tentatively, my subject is what I have learned traveling 1,000,000 miles around the world. What are the things I've learned from that? A, about the world, and B, about traveling. So, assuming you're interested in that, then tune in next week. And always, new videos out Friday, 7 a.m. Los Angeles time, recorded one. So stay tuned for that as well. And finally, as usual, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you all in the next video.